And Todd T up for another round.
Woohoo! Alright, we left our protagonist. He just ran through, he's on another top of a cinder block wall running at a high rate of speed away from Goat, trying to track him down. Murtaugh was winded and didn't see the large gap in the theretofore continuous cinder block wall. His foot was about to go down on top of the chain link fence. Bright yellow wires jutted out of the fence. The fence hummed mildly. Murtaugh tumbled to the backyard on his right. Back to his feet and jogging, the sounds of dogs was upon him. They had been released through a sliding glass door. Panicked, Murtaugh sprinted and almost made it out of the yard before the dogs caught up to him. As he leapt and pulled himself up onto the wall, he was bit on his left leg. It stung horribly. It was a small dog with bat-like ears that locked its bite in the soft back of his knee. Murtaugh looked behind. 2 Doberman pinschers barked, but weren't attempting to bite. Murtaugh dropped off the wall, then turned towards a man with a newspaper rolled in his hand, running in his direction. "Porky!" the man yelled. "Porky, down!" The Chihuahua remained firmly affixed to the back of Murtaugh's knee. Murtaugh winced and fought the urge to poke at the eyes, freaky, cartoonish eyes. The man yanked on the scruff of the dog's neck. It tugged Murtaugh's skin, unwilling to let go. The man pushed his thumb and forefinger into the dog's small jaws and opened them. The dog dropped to the ground, growling. The man scooped the dog up. Murtaugh and the man looked at one another for several seconds. "Large strip coffee?" Murtaugh asked the man. "Sometimes like an airplane bottle of Beam?" "Oh, I just did the wrong. Oh, yeah. That's right. I thought I recognized you," the man said. "AM PM. Yeah, I just got off my shift." "Martin?" the man asked. "Murtaugh." "Well, Murtaugh, what were you doing in my yard? I've got a front door that most people use when visiting," the man said. "I don't mind. I'm just curious." "That's a quick dog," Murtaugh said, as he pressed down on the tongue-like flap of skin on the inside of his knee. The flesh wiggled like a loose tooth, and ants climbed up his legs. He brushed them off. His stomach soured. "Wife says they're royalty, specially trained. Claims there's a painting of a Chihuahua in the Sistine Chapel next to Moses," which is true. "So that doesn't answer what you're doing in my backyard." "Being chased," Murtaugh said. "By who?" "A guy I knew in high school. I become one of his hobbies." "What's his name? I probably know him." "Goat." "Goat?" Murtaugh hadn't thought of Goat's real name in years, and tried to think of Goat's high school yearbook photo, his disturbing smile, his bulging neck bordered by a cut-off sweatshirt collar. "I'd be surprised if you didn't know him on sight. The guy with the cherry GTO." "Little guy? Lots of muscles?" "Yeah, that's him," Murtaugh replied. "Why do I think of steroids when I think of him?" The Chihuahua nibbled on bits of Murtaugh's skin lodged between its teeth, clacking its jaw. "Never proven. There was a rumor he was doing horse steroids." Again, that's true, too. "He won state, wrestling for his weight class, and I haven't heard anything of him getting stripped of the title," Murtaugh said. "That kid's always been wound tight," the man said. "His father used to work road construction with me. He's pretty much a prick. Too competitive for my tastes." The man looked at Murtaugh's wound. "Think you're going to need stitches?" "I usually just super glue the smaller rips, butterfly the flaps. Works pretty well if you're not worried about staying pretty." Murtaugh took the fingers off the back of his knee. Skin gave, but blood was slowly congealing. Murtaugh flicked several ants off the wound. "Probably stitches. Mind if I wait it out a little?" "How'd you get to be the GTO kid's hobby?" "Far as I can figure, 9th grade. Phys ed class. I ran faster than him. One day. He didn't like being beaten by anyone. Mushball, pull-ups, running, anything. I just made the mistake of running faster than him one day. I get this uneasy feeling that he's gearing up to kill me. And I don't think he's joking." Murtaugh swatted at a fly and pushed his skin tight. The wound seeped out beads of blood. that made short trails down his leg. Want some antiseptic? I think I got some bandages too if you think you'll need them. Murtaugh nodded. Appreciate it. The man dropped the chihuahua to the ground. The dog scampered and yipped around the man like a professionally flung yo-yo. It followed the man as he disappeared behind the sliding glass door into the house. Murtaugh watched the Dobermans. They ambled around the yard, marked their territory by peeing on several bushes, then sat like well-bred statues on either side of Murtaugh. Murtaugh didn't dare attempt to pet either one of them or look at them directly. The lines of blood trickling down his leg clotted, drying quickly in the heat. The Doberman on Murtaugh's right licked its teeth and yawned. The door slid open. Just in case you're sitting there thinking it over, she's had her shots. Porky's a good dog. If I would have seen you, I would have called her off. She takes like that every time I open the door, so I didn't even give it a second thought. Sorry about that. Hate to be blunt. I need some assurance. Murtaugh looked up to the man. Look into my eyes and tell me that you're not going to sue me. Ah, Murtaugh said. Absolutely. Hadn't even occurred to me. Murtaugh looked directly at the man. I won't sue you. Thanks for your help. Okay. Never can tell nowadays. The man put the antiseptic and bandages on the table. Besides, I know where you work. If you don't mind me asking, Murtaugh asked, why don't you have a cinder block wall like the rest of your neighbors? When I moved in, there was no wall, no fence, just stakes in the ground between the two properties. Didn't know I was the only one in the neighborhood. The man rubbed his chin and looked back at Murtaugh. I was running across the top of them, started at the top of your block. Porky leapt at the movement of a cricket, stalked it, and caught it in her mouth mid-hop. The insect's body cracked in the dog's teeth. Porky licked the brown fluid from her lips. Curious is all, Murtaugh continued. It's really none of my business. Blowy and Sophie, the man said, nodding to the two Dobermans. These two have impressive vertical leaps. Murtaugh looked at the still, well-behaved Dobermans. These two? Don't let their obedience fool you. They know they're being observed. They're not so secretly dream of running back to Germany. Had to make the fence higher, increase the voltage a bit. They respect pain. It's the invisibility of electricity that they occasionally test. So far, the setup stopped them from more jailbreaks. Murtaugh looked at the brown dirt furrows of the dog's favorite paths, laced through the light matte green of the lawn, struggling to survive the summer. Don't suppose you take them for walks? Murtaugh asked. Never together. It'd be like putting leashes on two top-fuel dragsters. Don't need the grief. Especially all of this business with my hand. The man raised his hand that was currently holding a beer and pointed at it with his other hand. Prosthesis. I can bend it into shapes. Holds beer just fine. Works okay with the steering wheel. Murtaugh took the gauze and the antiseptic off the table and squirted the antiseptic into his wound. Thanks again for this. Sorry for running through your yard. It's okay. I'm serious about the suing part. It's a small town. Secrets are hard to come by, especially from someone like me, who currently has a lot of free time. The man stuck out his good hand and said, Laverta Moonsey, but people who aren't telemarketers call me Priest. I'm telling you because you weren't using my name to talk to me. Murtaugh wiped his hand on his shorts and shook the man's heavily calloused hand. Pleasure to see you again, Priest. Sorry for forgetting your name. My midterm memory's shot. Blood saturated the antiseptic flushed gauze. Murtaugh clamped it to his skin. He then removed it and balanced the blood-soaked fabric on the top of his other knee. Flies appeared and buzzed around Murtaugh. The dull pain of the wound spread, radiating out from his knee in heart-pumped pulses. Murtaugh winced as he irrigated the wound with more antiseptic. Hurts, don't it? Priest said, playfully crushing Porky's small head with his hand. Murtaugh winced and applied pressure on a fresh bandage. Had a tetanus shot lately? Think so. Better check, Priest said. Wife spoils Porky. She's had feelings. Wife took her to a doggy dentist down in Mexico to get it done. Don't know if it's metal in there or what. Priest finished off a beer and sucking gurgles before the can had heated up. So what do you do? Murtaugh asked, making talk. Sit on this porch here mostly, the last couple of months, Priest answered. Enjoying a temporary sabbatical. Recouping. This fake hand's not that old, getting used to it. Occasionally feeling sorry for myself. The GTO trawled in the distance. The low bass of his exhaust carried long distances. Hear that? Murtaugh asked. Yes, son, I do. Murtaugh's skin crawled. The back of his neck itched. He shifted uncomfortably. Think he can smell you bleeding? Priest teased, like a shark. Sometimes he just shows up out of nowhere. Think you're going to need more gauze? You're bleeding more than I thought you would. I think I saw more in the cabinet. It's finally crusting up. I think it'll do, Murtaugh said. You can use a shop rag to tie it up. Priest pointed to a tub of rags several feet away. Those ones there are freshly laundered. If you don't mind me asking, how'd you lose your hand? Murtaugh asked. Got trampled. Bull? Yeah, rodeo. Thought you worked the road crew. Do, Priest said. Well, did. Got an application in to being a foreman. Don't need both hands for that. Murtaugh wrapped his knee up with a rag. Moonlighting, Priest continued. Clown. Rodeo clown. Tough racket, Murtaugh replied. Telling jokes to cows. Funny, Priest said flatly. Enjoyed the excitement. It's always different. Kept me occupied. Don't know about you, but too much thinking and I get restless. Too much thinking's not good for me. Road construction's always the same. Has to be. Heavy work. But the doctor told me I needed cardiovascular fitness. Suggested jogging or racquetball or something. I refused to take a pill. Besides, I was getting a punch. Vanity's a bitch. Any tips? Murtaugh asked. About? Avoiding bulls from kicking your head in? Getting trampled? Priest sighed. Promise you won't get mad at the answer? Sure. How's the knee? Priest noticed that Murtaugh had stopped fidgeting with it. Oh, I think it'll be fine. And Murtaugh didn't finish his sentence as Priest leapt up from his lawn chair and punched Murtaugh in the middle of his chest, knocking Murtaugh backwards onto the ground. Murtaugh started laughing. How did I not see that coming? Priest offered his good hand. Murtaugh rolled to his side out of the lawn chair and got to his feet. Number one thing I've learned from rodeo clowning is everything can inflict pain. The bull is the most obvious of your problems. Barrels, rope handles, riders, spurs, the ground if you lose track of where it is, all can potentially hurt you. Looking at ladies when you're supposed to be doing your job can get you a pain to have good. You okay? Murtaugh rubbed his chest. I'm fine. That was a clean hit. Good. I was just hoping he'd knock you back, not really hurt you, Priest said. You already know how to fall. That's an important step, how to go limp when you have to. You also got something you know, but you probably don't know you know. Some people who fight, they don't want to get hurt. There's no shame in running. That's what a clown's job description is. Getting them frustrated and tired is the key. Make them not think clearly. Bulls, people, works basically on the same principle. Murtaugh cautiously righted his lawn chair and sat back down on it, hyper-aware that Priest may strike again. The dogs aren't the only reason I don't have a back fence, Priest said. They're the reason I have all the electrical wires. I had a little accounting discrepancy with a previous neighbor. Ah, damn it. I lied about my hand. You got me talking. What are you, a shaman, a shrink, a yogi or something? Priest joked. My old neighbor and I had agreed on a sum for a cinder block wall. Match it up with all the neighbors, replace those stakes. This is a couple of years back, before the dogs and wife. I was tired of seeing his fat ass slopping into his hot tub. He was tired of watching me clean my guns. Half and half on a good wall was the deal. Handshake. That's all the lawyering I need. Got a contractor friend out here, slapped that wall up on a long Saturday. Banged it out. Nice and straight, plumb, no nonsense cinder block wall. After it was up, my neighbor decided not to pay his fair share. He paid half of what he agreed to, because he thought I got a deal from my friend, and I was pocketing the difference. He could have gotten estimates, couldn't have done the legwork. It was a totally fair, reasonable price. But he was convinced I swindled him and refused to pay it in full. So one night I hopped the wall and painted his entire side black. Just a reminder that every time he looked at it, that he'd reneged on his handshake. That he was the asshole. But I liked that wall. It At least I never had to see him shamooing in his hot tub after that. That's what got stuck in my craw. He was an aeronautical engineer. He had the cash. Just a jerk. So a couple of 4th of July's back, right when the fireworks were going, I bobcatted. You know those little mini bulldozers with the roll cages? The wall down into his yard. Jesus, that was fun. I kept tearing at it until it was completely down. I felt like I was beating him up by tearing down that wall. I'd walked in the parade that morning, so when the guy gets home, he's got me, a drunk rodeo clown, tears of complete fucking joy streaking down my makeup, wig full of cement dust, pulling brodies in his backyard. I didn't hear him drive up. Didn't see him until he was in my headlights. That pasty Bermuda shorted hair part of the middle socks and sandals geek stood there with his hands in his pockets. And I gunned the bobcat with the clutch and let her loose. The priest paused. Flipped it. Flipped it with my hand outside the roll bar, holding on to a bottle of whiskey. Not only did I crush my hand, the bottle shattered into my bones. Ripped pretty much every tendon and nerve and whatnot in there. Doctors have been trying to save it the past 2 years. They thought it took a couple of times, but my body would eventually reject it. Amputated the hand clean off a couple months back and got this bendy thing. Priest raised his prosthesis. When I pulled that stunt, the engineer jerk just stood there looking at me. Eventually all he said was, "You feel better?" Then he walked up to me, put a taser to my neck, and the next thing I remember I was handcuffed to a bed in the hospital. So who put up the fence? Murtaugh pointed to the chain link fence that separated the two houses. Juniper shrubs laced through their branches. I did. It took some time, Priest said. It turned out the guy was moving a couple of days after the 4th anyway. The house was already in escrow. He got a job at the Nevada test site working on this thing that's supposed to shoot the space shuttle into orbit like a Buck Rogers slingshot. Never saw him again. Priest cleared his throat. See what I'm getting at? No, Murtaugh replied, not really. I didn't expect anything from that geek except common decency, and that he'd be scared if I pushed him. If he was scared, he never showed it. Running don't mean scared. If you do it right, running means thinking. It means tiring the other guy out, waiting for the right moment. You have any extra beers? Murtaugh asked. For you, $1. First aid was free. Murtaugh fished through his pockets, paid his $1, and waited with the dogs. He closed his eyes and his head lolled back. Porky came up and lapped the back of his knee, displacing a couple of flies. Tired, Murtaugh looked down at the dog and patted its head. The priest returned with a small cooler. Keep your mistakes small. That's what I've been trying to get straight in my brain to tell you. Keep your mistakes small. Disregard most of the other stuff I told you. Murtaugh tried to sip his beer, but couldn't resist gulping it down. He'll come to you, Priest said. Try to make it on your own terms. Speaking of, mind if I stay a bit until he's got to refuel or gets distracted by something else? Murtaugh asked. If you stay over an hour, the lady who lives in that house now will get off work and undress. The priest pointed to his mannequin hand to a window. She's another reason I'm in no hurry to take out the chain-link fence. Murtaugh shifted his position and noticed from Priest's vantage point that juniper bushes were trimmed, offering an unobstructed view of the bedroom window. She likes the attention, Priest said. Trust me, this is not the first time I've had company over. Murtaugh sifted through his pockets and found $3. Mind if I pay all at once? 3 more beers? Got 3 more beers in there for me? Murtaugh motioned to the cooler. Cash on the barrelhead, Priest remarked. You're speaking my language. An hour passed. The next door lady waved as she removed her blouse and snapped off her bra. It was like watching a silent movie on a small screen. Priest and Murtaugh, they waved back at her. Ever talk to her? Murtaugh asked. See her at the post office or shopping once in a while, Priest said. We exchanged pleasantries. That's about it. She's the best neighbor I've ever had.